Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today I continue my top 3 recommended Horus Heresy reads for each and every Primarch, with the Raven Lord, Corvus Corax. In recommending particular stories today, I will be mentioning events that transpire within the novel, so do keep that in mind as we move forward. However, with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Okay, so as usual here, before I begin with my top 3, I'm going to do a couple of honourable mentions, which I feel is quite important for Primarchs like Corax, who never gets quite as much spotlight as his more popular kin. Now, my first honourable mention is Corax's Primarch novel, Corax Lord of Shadows, by author Guy Haley. This follows the usual Primarch series format of giving a glimpse into the Great Crusade era of the particular Primarch and Legion. However, I have it here mainly as an honourable mention due to the opening scene with his brother Rabute Guilliman. It's not often you get to see Corax in the company of his brothers, even less so one he likes, and so it's just very enjoyable to see the Raven Lord and Guilliman together, getting along, a moment outside of war, see how they interact and discuss certain things. It's particularly enjoyable if you're a fan of Guilliman too, so I do recommend checking this one out if you can. Now, my second honourable mention is The First Heretic by author Aaron Dembski-Bowden. Now honestly, this is really more just the Istvan section and Corax's appearance within it, rather than the entire thing. It's an outstanding novel, but Corax's appearance in it is pretty limited. It is primarily a Lorgar novel. However, it's not only an awesome appearance from Corax here, but it's quite possibly his best within the entire Heresy series. And it's important for his character development and understanding too. Essentially, Lorgar wades into the battle to stop Corax from eviscerating his sons. And well, he promptly gets eviscerated himself instead, only being saved by the arrival of Konrad Curze. And again, it's simply a fantastic little Raven Lord moment. Not only revealing his shock and confusion at the scope of the betrayal, but also his rage too. His unbridled anger at them betraying their father. Honestly, it was reading this scene for the very first time that made me fall in love with Corax instantly. Everything about his character here is just fascinating, and seeing how lethal he was in battle as well. How it wasn't even a question of him killing Lorgar. It's a great moment and one that couldn't go without an honourable mention. And this leads me on to a couple of quick little shout outs here before moving on to the recommended top 3. The first being the Horus Heresy audio drama Raven's Flight by Gav Thorpe, which tells the tale of Corax's survival and ultimate escape from Istvan. And the second being Konrad Curze's Primarch novel The Night Haunter, by author Guy Haley. In this one, we get a flashback to an encounter with Corax during the Great Crusade, and it's a brief one, with no action, just the two of them talking. But my word, Corax comes off as a badass here. Really well. It's a real tense little moment between the two legions, with the so-called Masters of the Shadow, the Night Lords, seeing just how superior the Ravens are in the Shadow. So definitely give it a look if you haven't before. However, now moving on to my top 3 recommended Horus Heresy series reads for Corvus Corax. I have first the novel Deliverance Lost by author Gav Thorpe. You know, I can't remember if I named this one in my most underrated reads of the Horus Heresy series, but if I didn't, well then I maybe should have, because it is quite simply fantastic. It picks up after the events of Raven's flight, showing Corax's last moments upon Istvan and his resulting escape. And it kind of restores Corax's character right away by showing him regretting that he didn't stay on the battlefield upon Istvan and slay Conrad and Lorgar when he had the opportunity. That he's kicking himself for retreating. And I just kind of like that, as it shows he didn't retreat at Kurz's arrival through any sense of fearing him combat-wise, which did kind of become a bit of the perception at the time. This story covers Corax's return to the throne world, conversing with Malkador, Rogel, and even the Emperor. The events of him being blessed with the secrets to rebuild his legion, and the Alpha Legion's infiltration and sabotage of his project. And we even get to see the Raven Lord's first meeting with the Emperor. It is quite simply an absolutely fantastic Raven Lord novel, and easily my number one for him as a character. So if you want to get to know the Primarch, you couldn't go wrong with starting here. Now, number 2 is the novel Corax, again by author Gav Thorpe. Corax is a little different here in that it's more an anthology of stories for the Raven Lord, rather than one big story, and it tells his full journey throughout the Heresy. From the rebuilding of his legion, his guerrilla war against the traitor forces, right through to saving Leman Russ after his duel against the War Master. The stories included are Soulforge, the Shadow Masters, Raven Lord, The Value of Fear, Raptor, and Weregeld. And it essentially tells the tale of how Corax went from the confident Raven Lord that he began the Heresy as, to the guilt-ridden, more somber than ever one by the Heresy's end. And there's some really great moments included in this, such as explaining why Corax could have decided to go to the Beta Garmin system but decided against it, his interaction and reunion with the Wolf King, and even the heartbreaking moment he decides to take out his muted creations. It is quite simply quintessential reading for the Raven Lord's character, and while not containing maybe as many epic moments as elsewhere in the series, it is a fantastic character study, and really fills in all the gaps in his story. However, finally, my third and final recommended Corax story of the Horus Heresy series is the short story Shadows of the Past by author Gav Thorpe. Now, you could argue this one's cheating here, as the story is set in the events after the Heresy. However, it is technically a Horus Heresy series story, so I'm including it here. It covers the events of Corax's appearance within the Eye of Terror, with his hunt and rematch against Lorgar, a now demonically ascended Lorgar to boot, where once again the Raven Lord comes out the victor, forcing the Horizon to retreat away. It gives us the knowledge that Corax is alive out there somewhere still, and more importantly, that he has embraced the psychic, warp-given nature within himself, becoming more powerful than ever, a bit like Lionel Johnson. Corax is still the warrior Primarch we've always known, clad in his armour and wearing his infamous claws. However, now he possesses formidable psychic ability, able to seamlessly transform into a flock of ravens, and a storm with white lightning crackling within it. And again, he goes toe-to-toe with a demonic Lorgar here, and he doesn't bat an eye in doing so. And yes, we've seen other loyal Primarchs do it, such as Jagatai and Lionel Johnson, not to mention Guilliman. However, still, it's a very impressive outing for the Raven Lord, getting to see the Primarch still out there somewhere. Again, still that warrior we've always known, but now just not giving a you-know-what. entirely intent on tracking down and taking out his traitor brothers. And well, that's it. That rounds out my top 3 recommended heresy reads for the Raven Lord Corvus Corax. We have the novel Deliverance Lost, the novel Corax, and the short story Shadows of the Past. As always everyone, what do you think? Do you agree with my recommended reads for the Raven Lord here? Or do you perhaps prefer the honourable mentions? Or are there other stories out there that I haven't mentioned today? As always, drop your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.